I want to thank all the panelists and the students that were able to join us today. I'm really excited about this session on data and technology. Great West Casualty is an incredible company right in our backyard that we've had the pleasure of working with for a long time. They have a long history of not only working with our interns for various programs, also job shadowing opportunities and hiring our graduates. They're on the cutting edge when it comes to data analytics and different computer science and just incorporating these different principles into their work life and really using that information to make decisions for their benefit and business. We're really great and excited to have such a great panel with us from Great West, as well as some alumni that are going to share their experience and talk a little bit about their experience with the company and also their experience through Morningside that helped them get there. So if you have any questions, I would ask that you put them in the chat. We'll make sure to circle back to them, whether it's throughout the presentation or there will be time for questions at the end. But with that, I would like to turn it over to Steve Cross. He's the Vice President for Business Analytics at Great West. He's been an incredible and dynamic speaker for us in the past, and we're excited to have him as well as his team here today. So like I said previously, we will be recording this if there are any students that weren't able to join. But with that, I'll pass it over to Steve.
All right, good morning, or I guess it's afternoon now, everybody. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it, as Alex said. I've been out to Morningside a couple of times to do presentations, and I feel very limited when I'm doing it, doing this via video because I'm fairly animated, and so I will walk around and walk up and down the aisles in the room, and I can't really do that here. I mean, I guess I could, but you wouldn't really see me, and it would lose a lot of its effect. So bear with us as we present in this virtual manner. We're going to keep it on time today. We're going to talk to you about a couple of different areas and a couple of different groups. And Brandy, is it possible if you could, or Alex, I don't know if you can move it over to Brandy to share the slides?
Yep, Brandy has co-host capabilities. So
perfect, yep. If we could share those slides and then we can kind of get going there, great. So let's go on to the next one here. So here is who you're going to, here's who is going to be talking at some point today. And I will let each of them, when it is their portion, to do a quick introduction. But again, it's myself, Mike Flannery, Mike Wismont, Jason Latta, Brandy Klunder, Carter Huggins, and Anthony Epp. And it won't be in that order. We're going to keep you on your toes. But as Alex mentioned, I'm the Vice President of our Data and Analytics function here at Great West. We have been in existence about 5 years, and we have a few different areas within our team. We have our data architecture, we have our business intelligence, and we have our business analytics or predictive modeling. And I'll talk about this in a bit more detail in some future slides here. Next slide. Okay, the point of this slide is not that we know how to use colors, nor is it that to go into all the details on a state-by-state basis. But the main point here is that we do business nationwide, and we do business in practically the entire United States. So we're not a small regional company who only does business in this tri-state area of South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska. But we're, again, very nationwide in the United States. If you don't know what we do, we do trucking insurance. That's what we do, and that's all we do. We're experts at what we do, and we don't focus on those areas that we're not sure of the risk, et cetera, that is out there. We provide insurance for heavy trucks, so Class 8 trucks or those big 18-wheelers, et cetera, that are going down the road. Most of us have, whether it's a family member or a family friend or someone that you know that drives a truck, whether they have their own or owner-operator or they drive for somebody else. Most of us has some sort of knowledge of the trucking industry, not intimate knowledge, but knows, again, at least somebody who does this for a living. And that's our mission, is to be the premier provider of insurance products and services for truckers and the trucking industry. We have 5 offices. South Sioux City is our main office. And that is, if you've ever been in South Sioux City, you've probably been by it, whether you know it's our building or not. It's a very, very nice campus that we have with 2 quite nice buildings. We also have offices out in Boise, Idaho, Knoxville, Tennessee, Arlington, Texas, and Bloomington, Indiana. Let's go to the next slide. So intro to data and analytics at Great West Casualty. As mentioned, we've been in existence here for 5 years, a little over 5 years now. And we have a team. Our team includes, I don't know, about 16, 17 people across the 3 disciplines. We have individuals who've been with the company for less than 2 years, and we have those who've been with the company for 25 or more years. And I'm sure you're going to hear very similar things when Mike Flannery speaks, except the numbers. He has more people in the IT group, but the tenure and the duration that they've been here is very similar. We have a very experienced company, but we also have a lot of newer people to bring good and fresh ideas. Next slide. So who we are. The data and analytics team are people who have a variety of backgrounds. So some of you have a business background, but you might be good at computer programming. You might be good at numbers, data analysis, might be good at statistics. Everybody, though, has a strong math background. And for many of us, it wasn't their undergraduate major. We have individuals on our team who their undergraduate major was computer science. We have some that were economics undergrads, and then they received an advanced degree in data science or predictive analytics or statistics. Typically for our team on the predictive side of the house, and again, I'll explain what all that is here in a second, though most of the group, well, the entire group has master's degrees or higher, and the entire team overall, including our business intelligence, would require a bachelor's degree or higher. So again, a variety of backgrounds. The common denominator is that strong math and computer science background. So what do? We help to bridge that knowledge gap between data and users of data. At any company, you have 3 main assets. You have people. Everybody knows that. That's what human resources is for. People are a major asset for any company. You have, well, finances, dollars and cents, money, and their accounting takes part in keeping track of the assets and liabilities that you have for any company. But then you also have data. And we view that, and our group views that data and the users of data, there's a knowledge gap that needs to be bridged so the people who use the data know how to best use it. Let's go to the next slide. And here was the aforementioned, and I won't spend an inordinate amount of time here, but here was the aforementioned, I'll get to it later as to what we do. This is the continuum, and it starts on the left side and moves to the right. So I don't care what your degree is. Everybody has seen and looked at reports. Whether or not they like them, they have looked at them. And it may be as part of their studies, and it may be as just part of everyday life. Reports exist. Reports are in newspapers. Reports are out in the media. You'll see reports here and there. Our group is involved in creating reports, and that helps determine what has happened in the past. As you move to the right and we also try to diagnose where is the problem. So something has been happening, and this is getting beyond a report and trying to pinpoint where there is a problem. And then you keep moving to the right. what can we do about it and why is it happening? Not just knowing what happened, but where's the problem and why is it happening? Continue to the right is when you try to predict something. You try to get an understanding of what is likely to happen in the future. And that is our predictive analytics side, where we're using statistics to predict future outcomes. At Great West, future outcomes we might predict are which of these, and Anthony and Carter on my team will discuss this more in the future. Or I'm sorry, more in their portion of this presentation. But those future outcomes will be, for example, what price should we put on this piece of business based on how risky it is? So how likely is this driver to have an accident over the next year? And knowing that, if Mike Flannery and I are both drivers and he's a very safe driver and I'm a very risky driver, you're probably going to want to charge me more than you're going to charge Mike, because he's safer, I'm more risky, I'm more likely to get into an accident. And then is the final, it is prescribing or proscribing. What action should we take or not take? And this gets beyond just your typical predictive analytics, and you can prevent things. An example of that might be fraud. If you're able to predict a fraudulent activity and where we should be using our legal resources because we believe that a claim is fraudulent, is going to be a wise use of analytical knowledge. And the reason we're able to do all of this is, again, because of the advancements in technological power and the horsepower that you have in computers, in processing and memory, that it is less cost restrictive. In the past, we did these things 20 some years ago, but it was very expensive to be able to do this. And now it is much more of a democratization of data and technology based on availability. Let's move on to the next two slides. This one here. Real quickly, I always like to include this when we're talking to a college or a university and the students, because they hear that we're analytical people and they hear that we're computer programmers and assume that that is all that's needed for employment at a company like Great West. And to be honest, when I'm interviewing somebody, and Brandy can attest to this because she's interviewed with me before, the first thing I'm looking for is communication skills. That doesn't mean that the person has to be the most outgoing individual ever, but that they need to be able to speak clearly and speak confidently and being able to understand the business. Now, we don't expect somebody to come in here and be an expert in our business, but if they can show some business acumen and that their skills are not just being able to code or being able to understand mathematics, that's very important. Obviously, the hard skills of data and programming are important. And then that confidence, that ability also to connect the dots as to, here's a problem, here's a solution, connect the dots between the two, to be able to formulate a solution for common everyday problems. One more slide here. And then what are the red flags? What are we saying is a bad thing? Well, these should look familiar. Poor communicator. They have no business acumen. In other words, their only knowledge is about the programming, and they're not able to relate their skills to what a business does or what any company does or any nonprofit, etc. They don't know their audience. So they're speaking with a business person and they're using mathematical formulas or talking about the deepest type of programming language that's out there. These next two go together, cockiness and lack of confidence. So the point is, be confident, but don't think that there's nobody who knows more than you do at this point, because that's not the case. Sometimes it's just a bad fit. And then finally is a flight risk. People who have a reason to be in this area, we view as being very strong as employees. And this is why to be honest, why we take such an interest in Morningside is because a lot of students are either from here, or they might not be from here, but they're going to college here. And so we have people who have a reason to be here. They have a tie to the area. And we believe that those are the types of people who make for Great West, who make for the best Great West employees. So now I'm going to move on to Carter Huggins. And Carter, you can take over at this point.
All right, thanks, Steve. So yeah, I'm Carter Huggins. I am a predictive modeler here at Great West. A little bit of my background. I did my undergrad at Morningside. I started off as just a math education major and did that all the way up until right before my senior year. And that's when I actually found out about Great West and the different math-related careers that they have. Basically, with 1 year left, I decided to pivot and switch to just math, and ended up graduating from Morningside with just that math degree. Went to University of Iowa to get my master's in statistics. During that time, I had 2 summer internships at Great West, and then I've been working at Great West ever since. So I said I was a predictive modeler. Let's kind of define what a predictive model is. Brandy, if you want to go ahead and click twice to show these graphics. So just very simply, a predictive model is going to be a formula or an algorithm that's going to take in certain input variables and you want to output one prediction. So we'll start with that graph on the left. It's probably the most similar type of modeling technique there is, just basic linear regression with one predictive variable. So what this model is doing is it's trying to predict the height of some type of plant based on the water content in the soil that it's growing. So the blue dots there are your data, and then that red line is your model, your best fit line. And really, you guys have all seen something like this before in high school algebra. It's just your y equals mx plus b equation. And this is actually one of the better type of models you can do if you only have your one predictive variable. So that's a simple example. There are hundreds of different modeling techniques that get a lot more complex than this. So that example on the right, it is a decision tree type of model. And what it does is all the data points, they start at the top of the tree and they start making their way down through the different branches and sub branches, and you end up getting your prediction. So what this model is it's a tree-based model to predict the survival rate of passengers on the Titanic. Okay, so we all know the Titanic story. You save the women and children first, right? So let's see if the computer could actually figure that out just based on the data without actually knowing the story. So you start at the top. The first question, really the most important, is whether you were a male or female. So on the left, that's if you were a male. So you keep moving down the tree. Next, a little sub branch there is, are you an adult? If you were an adult male, you go to the left again, and now your survival probability was only 20% for those adult males. So this model is going to predict that all adult males do not survive. Now, if you were not an adult male, we've got one more sub branch under there, whether or not you were in third class. So if you were a child male and you were in third class, you only had a 27% chance of survival. So again, the model would predict that you don't survive. And then on the other side, you've got the male children that were not in third class. 100% of those children survived. Now on the other side, talk about the females. The only sub branch under females is whether or not you were in third class. If the females were in third class, there's a 46% chance of survival. So it's close to 50, but the model has to make a yes or no decision. So the model would predict that no, you wouldn't survive. And then you've got the non-third class females on the far right there with a 93% chance of survival rate. So a very simple tree-based model that only using 3 variables gets you to pretty accurate predictions. And these tree-based models can get a lot more complex. You can do hundreds of different predictive variables, hundreds of different branches that eventually you move down through them and you end up getting your final prediction. So let's go to the next slide and talk about another actual project that we built a tree-based model for. So this is our prospect model, and the goal here is to acquire new insureds. So our prospects here are truckers or trucking businesses that are currently insured by somewhere other than Great West. Okay, So our perception here is that Great West cannot write new business. We know we're really good at keeping around our customers that have been quality for us, but we kind of have a hard time writing quality new business. And that's through our next bullet point, that our quality of submissions needs improvement. So these are businesses that get submitted by our agencies. We really don't know if this is going to be like a quality insured. So if they're going to be risky or non-risky, if they're going to make us money or cost us more than what they're paying in premium. And then we also have these agents, they want to write more business with Great West, and they can't look at everybody. So we want to help them look at a specific group of, these are the customers you should be attacking to try and write at Great West. So that gives us to our solution here. We took a few different outside data sources, publicly available data from Department of Transportation, Federal Motor Carrier Database, all publicly available data, create about 300 variables for all these trucking businesses, build a tree-based model to basically predict the loss ratio or your riskiness score. The loss ratio is how much you're going to cost us compared to what you pay in premium. So it's similar to how risky this customer is going to be. So we've got our model that predicts this for all of these prospects. Now we're going to separate them by location, rank order them, and put them into deciles. So Steve showed you that regional map. So what we're going to do is for each one of our locations, we're going to give them this list of prospects that are in their region, and then we're going to rank order them and put them into the deciles. And so your decile, you'll be scored from 1 through 10. If you're in the first decile, you're in the top 10% for the least risky customers. So these are the ones that we want to bring in. And then if you're in the 10th decile, you're in the worst 10%. So you're the most risky customers. And then every month we distribute this list of prospects to all of our agents. And we say, hey, these are all your prospects in your region. We give them that risk score, and we tell them basically the lower scores are obviously better. So those lower scores are really the customers you should be looking at to try and get insured at Great West. So yeah, that's an example of a project I've worked on. At this point, I'll turn it over to Anthony. He's another predictive modeler in our department. So Anthony, it's all you.
Thank you, Carter. Yeah, like Carter said, my name is Anthony Epp to be precise. A little bit about myself. I am a graduate of Northwestern College, so another fellow GPAC school, like Morningside. My degree at Northwestern was a degree in actuarial science. Then I ended up switching gears just a little bit, very related, but a little slightly different direction. Went to South Dakota State to get a master's in data science. Now, I'm originally from Grand Island, Nebraska, so if you drew a circle around the 3 points of Northwestern, South Dakota State, and Grand Island, about in the middle is Sioux City and Great West. So that's kind of how I end up where I am here. And I've been here about three and a half years now. And just like Carter, I am also a predictive modeler. So that's a little bit about myself. Now, one of the projects that our group has worked on is in regards to reserving, or how much we will pay on a claim. Now, we're an insurance company, so general operation is we have people that pay us premium, and if they get in an accident, we are there to help cover the cost of those claims. Those claims we may or may not have to pay, depending upon who is at fault. So the question is how, when an accident happens and a claim comes in, we like to set aside a pile of money just in case we might have to pay some of that claim cost. So then one of the problems is, how much do you set aside at the beginning of the claim? Another problem is our claims can vary substantially, anywhere from it wasn't our driver's fault, so the other insurance company is going to pay for it, therefore our cost is zero on it, all the way to it was our insured's fault. We have to pay the whole bill, which could be up to $1 million plus, which is a huge variance of dollars. Now, another problem we have is, how do we gather all this information? Well, most of this information is stored in a claim notes. So someone calls in and talks to one of our representatives, and that representative then records the information on the claim. So most of it is just in the description of how or what happened in the accident, which is very tough to put together. All right, so how do you extract that? So one of our solutions then is we can search the claim notes for keywords. So you say, all right, maybe there's a keyword rear-end. All right, the model goes and looks, says, oh, yeah, that word appears in the claim notes. Or also like, oh, this car was totaled. All right, or maybe some other keywords. All right. So we take pieces like that, and there are other information, type of accident and whatnot. We build a model out of the claim information we have, and that will produce, the computer then produces a prediction amount for that claim. And that gives us a baseline of what our, say, adjusters can use to set aside the pile of money for potential costs. Yeah, so that is one project that we have worked on to help our adjusters. Now, you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Brandy. All right, so another project we have worked on is called as our nurse case management. Now, what this is this is more of a department impact project. So we here at Great West employ nurses. And that's kind of a crazy thing to say, like, oh, you're an insurance company. Why do you employ nurses? Well, the unfortunate thing is that in accidents, people do get hurt, which means medical costs. And so it is something that we have here is so that we have a knowledgeable representative to represent us in talking to doctors or the insured who is injured, to have a knowledgeable representative. So then the question is, what value does our nurse department add? And how do you quantify that value? And when you quantify that value, does that mean we should hire more nurses or fewer nurses? Another piece of that is, so when you're trying to ask what value do they add, we bring in premium as an insurance company and we pay out claims. Well, the nurses are not involved in bringing in that premium, nor are they involved in spending or sending out money to cover costs of claims. They're somewhere in between. And so how do you quantify that value? Well, one piece of value is they are very good representatives with us in talking with other medical professionals. So it gives us a good name when we have someone who's knowledgeable talking on our behalf. But that's really hard to quantify like a dollar value. So maybe it's like, okay, well, what claims do they have or work? So one interesting thing at the beginning of this project is we didn't have a claim log. So we didn't even know which claims they were working. At least not initially. And then also, once we have the claim log, well, how much work is completed on these claims? So another very difficult thing. But one important thing to note in all of this is that everyone here has the same goal. We want a healthy customer. And we have the incentives of wanting a healthy customer because a healthy customer is working, and someone who is working needs insurance coverage in trucking, and they'll be paying us premiums. And that's part of our business model. So, and a healthy customer is not on disability, and in disability, you don't make as much money when you're working. So they have the incentive, and the employer, they have the incentives of a healthy customer or a healthy worker as well, because then they have an additional experienced employee to work. So how do we go about evaluating or solving these problems for the nurse case management or establishing their department value? So we looked at claim notes and we say, okay, well, we don't have a list of claims. per se, but we do know what claims they left notes on. So we go and look at the notes and we ask, all right, so they left notes on these number of claims. Well, how do you value what amount of money or what impact they had on those claims? Well, you might, or how much work did they do? So you go look and say, all right, how many notes did they leave? Or what was the length of the notes? So you can go and look and say, all right, how many, so how many notes do they have? All right, another thing. So compare similar claims. So how do you also evaluate? Well, we do two groups. We set up the claims with nurse case management and the claims without. And then once we divide those two into two groups, we can compare them. How many days did the claim last open? If there's a reduction in that, that's a good thing. If there's a cost, and if the costs are cheaper in the nurse case management group, that's also better. So those are some of the things that we did in order to evaluate, and which I actually just saw in the email this morning. We actually hired another nurse this recently, so I'm assuming they used the work here.
Yeah.
So with that, do we have any questions so far for our analytics group, or if not, we can possibly transition to our IT group? Steve, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, just again, wanted to see if, thanks for your attention, wanted to see quickly if there were questions from the analytics side, and otherwise we'll move over to give the IT group the floor.
Yeah, just as a reminder for students, if you have questions throughout, make sure to use the chat or take this opportunity to unmute yourself and you can ask a quick question before we transition to IT.
Okay, I think we can move on to them. Probably advance 2 slides, Brandy, and we should be to the IT portion.
Pausing for technical difficulties, just a second. There we go.
All right, thank you. Perfect segue, technical difficulties. That's one of the jobs that IT deals with. So just as a matter of introduction, my name is Mike Flannery. I'm Assistant Vice President of Systems Development, but really my title should be Professional Geek. I have a team of fellow geeks, professional geeks that develop all of the software that our business runs on. We're part of a larger group called IT, and I'm going to just quickly go through and talk a little bit about what IT does for Great West and the different roles that you could go into as either a math or comp sci, computer engineering, software engineering degree student. So myself, I've been with Great West for 6 years, same as Steve, and that makes us just barely past what would be considered a newbie at Great West. There's great longevity at Great West as far as the employees. They tend to come and stay. As far as my developers, I have developers anywhere from, I had one start in August. Jason, who's going to be talking to you, graduated from Morningside and joined us in June. And I have a developer that just celebrated her 45th anniversary at Great West last year. So wide range of experience at Great West. We do tend to bring in interns. We are going to talk more about the internship program as we go through this. And we tend to hire interns in as full-time employees, and a lot of those employees stay through their entire career. Personally, I went to Iowa State with a computer engineering degree. I was born and raised in Sioux City, and I've come through a number of different industries. I started out in industrial process control. I went into the tech industry, worked for a company here in Sioux City called Gateway for 17 years. I've been in the beef industry, the ice cream industry, as well as financial industry before coming to insurance. And the one common factor is every industry in the world today needs computer programmers and computer engineers. And so there's opportunities with every company, And personally, I had never thought about insurance as being a tech-heavy type of an industry. And over the last 6 years, I've found out how wrong I was. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, and I'll talk you through a number of the different areas in IT. The first one is the one that a lot of people think of when they think of IT. They think of, well, there's the help desk I call if I'm having a problem with my presentation. I call if I have a problem with my PC. That's also where I go if I need to get a PC or if I need to get a cell phone or a printer, those types of things. But that's just one aspect of IT, and it's a very critical aspect of IT, but just one of those areas that you can go into. We also have in that same group that does all of our acquisitions for the business that are related to technology in any way, whether that's software or hardware. It all comes through our acquisitions group. So the next slide, please. The next part of our IT group is actually a very new group that's just being formed right now. It's splitting out some roles that have been covered within other groups, including my group. And it's putting more of a focus in the areas of business analytics, project management, and then along with that, we have a QA group that does software testing for the software that we develop in my group. So business analysis, that's where those communication skills that Steve was talking about, that's very much a liaison type role where you're working with the business, but you also have understanding of the technical systems, and you're able to bridge that and talk to the business about what their needs are and translate those needs into actual system requirements that are going to be fulfilled through my group as well as the other groups in IT. Project management. Project management is something that is really critical no matter where you're at in IT, whether you're in data and analytics or probably anywhere else. Those are fundamental skills that are key. But we're going to have some very specialized project managers in this group that are going to be focused on those really big cross-department, cross-function type projects where you need somebody really coordinating all the different areas. And then QA is something that is basically verifying that our software is ready to go. They're kind of that final checkpoint to make sure before we put something into our production that the testing has been done to make sure that it's ready. So we have the next slide. I'm not going to go through all these bullets. I realize this is kind of an eye chart, but our technical support services, they're the ones who deal with all the physical infrastructure that go into our business, whether that's servers, whether that's wiring going through the building, it's setting up databases, it's putting all the load onto the servers that's needed to support our software, operating systems, middleware, things like that. So very critical function for our business, putting all that infrastructure in place. And if you have a tendency to be a little more geared towards the hardware and a little more geared towards the actual operational aspect of systems, this might be an area of IT that might interest you. So next slide. Security, becoming more important every day. This is a growing area for every business. Security deals with everything from, making sure you have a username and password that you can get into the systems with, but also more important these days is making sure that we're protected against any kind of intrusion from outside the company, and that also the people inside the company, which is one of the weakest areas when it comes to security typically in a business, making sure that everybody inside the business is trained properly in order to protect our assets. And so just a growing area in every company, and it's something that's certainly taking more focus every year at Great West. Okay, the next slide. Then systems development. That's my area. We do the applications development for the business. We actually implement what the business says they need. So some of those things that were being talked about in the data and analytics portion, talking about getting, what kind of algorithm as far as what we charge for our product, for our software, or how we set our reserves when a claim comes in, you know, taking all of that information and putting that into a system that's actually used by our underwriters and used by our adjusters in order to run our business. So we take all of that information and translate it into usable systems. Also, we try and make sure that we're helping people become more efficient all the time, because right now we're a $1 billion company. Someday we want to be a $2 billion company, but we don't want to have twice as many employees in order to be a $2 billion company. So a lot of what we do is make sure that we're supporting the business so that people can be more efficient in what they do. Another thing is helping other parts of the company. So Anthony, in his part, he was talking about claims notes and about the difficulty of having to take that soft data and translate that into something actionable. Well, we're right now replacing our claims systems, and one of the big focuses of that change is converting a lot of those claims notes into actual hard data, so that now in our old system, if you needed to find out whether there was a hazardous material spill associated with a crash, or whether there was a minor involved in the crash, you know, with our old system, you'd actually have to try and pull that and mine that data out of the claims notes. In the new system, that'll actually be hard physical data in the database that's easily queryable. So we do a lot as far as helping the business, not only from the standpoint of people on the front lines, but also trying to help other areas of the business so that they have the data going forward that they're going to need. Another area that we deal with is technical writing and training. So we do all the writing for the business, and we also do a lot of the training for the business from a technical perspective, or we enable the other trainers in the business by providing materials, whether that's presentation materials, videos, and written documentation. So the next slide. Brandy, can we go to the next slide?
Yep, just a second.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So that kind of gives you some of the ideas of, you know, different directions you can go with your career, just even within one company like Great West. Internships at Great West, we do both summer and year-round. We prefer the year-round internships, but we also do some summer ones. We'll pair you up with not only a company mentor. Anybody coming into Great West gets paired up with a company mentor. We also pair you up with a technical mentor to help you get started. We have interns throughout the different areas of IT, not just systems development. And the thing that we get the most positive feedback on from our internship program is the interns get to do real work. You're not just looking over somebody's shoulder. You're not just auditing what they're doing. But we actually quickly get you integrated into one of the development teams, and you get to do real development for our real applications that are going to be used in our business on a day-to-day basis. And as I mentioned earlier, it's oftentimes a pathway to full-time employment. So hopefully it's something that down the road you'll consider applying for one of our internships. Many of our developers that we have now started out as interns. So could we have the next slide? So now you're going to be hearing from two former Morningside College students. Both Mike Wismont and Jason Latta are going to talk to you about some of the aspects, some of the details of what it's like to work at Great West and some of the skills you need to work at Great West in the systems development area. So, Mike, you want to take it away?
Okay, I'll take over. Thanks, Mike, or Big Geek number one. Like like Flannery was saying, my name is Michael Wismont. I'm also a Morningside alum. I've been with Great West as a software developer for about 9 years. It's kind of scary how fast that goes, actually. I'm going to be touching on some of the technical skills used within our development teams. If you don't have experience with some of these, you shouldn't let that prevent you from considering an application for either a position or an internship. Just speaking from my personal experience, I had very little familiarity with Java when I first started, and that happens to be the primary programming languages we use. The more important thing is to have a strong understanding of object-oriented fundamentals. And once you have that, it's fairly simple to pick up on Java syntax, especially when you're already familiar with a similar language like C++, which I think is probably still is taught at Morningside. Many of the applications that we support are web-based applications, which means they're accessed with a web browser. That puts a pretty big emphasis on web languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are all used to control the presentation. Many times, though, we don't write those from scratch. We use a framework, usually a JavaScript framework, to help assist us with that. So a pretty common example that many of you might have heard of is jQuery, although the one we use most commonly is called EXTJS, which is a product from a company called Sencha. A lot of what I've been working on recently is integrating data from our systems into purchased third-party applications. So in cases like that, I might not actually be writing a front end that someone interacts with. I'm just supplying data to some other front end that's another company's building for us. So when we do that, one of the main tools we use is what's called a REST service. And that basically means we're going to be passing information from one server to another server over HTTP. The first step when you're doing that is getting the data, loading it into the program. And so that's where a strong understanding of SQL and relational databases comes into play. The next thing that has to happen is the data needs converted into a format that both the sender and receiver understand, which is what JSON and XML are used for. If you haven't heard of these terms, they're just different ways to format data so that it's in a predictable structure. So a common task that a programmer might have would be to read in data, use a library to convert it from a Java object into its JSON string representation, and then transmit that data over HTTP, as well as the reverse. There's some other miscellaneous languages that we use within the department, like COBOL, Visual Basic, .NET, PowerShell, and Python. I'm sure I'm hearing some cringes when I say some of those. Many of them are what you'd consider legacy technologies, and they're things we're trying to get away from, but they're still present within the department, so it doesn't hurt if you have familiarity with them. Most of our daily development and work is going to be done inside a tool called an integrated development environment, more frequently called an IDE. We use a specific one that's based on a platform called Eclipse. If you haven't used an IDE before, I'd recommend downloading one and just getting used to it. Basically, any company you go program for, you're not going to be working in Notepad. You're going to be working inside of an IDE, so it pays to get familiar with them. Besides Eclipse, there's other free options like NetBeans and Xcode if you're a Mac user. The other main tool I'd recommend getting familiar with is some sort of version control system. The most popular free version is called Git, although at the company we use an IBM product that's not available. So that's why I kind of say go learn Git and you'll have a good idea of how to use it. A version control system is what allows team members to have a common code base and stay in sync with each other. And so it's obviously very important when you're working in a distributed team environment. So that's kind of my overview of the geeky skills you need to be a programmer at Great West. We're going to hand it over to Jason next, and he's going to hit on a little bit of what it's like to be a new employee, because he actually started not too long ago.
Yes. Hello. Can you see me? Yes. Hello. So I'm Jason, as they said, not to be confused with the way of formatting data, even though I'm like, oh, my name. No, they're just talking about the data format. But I'm Jason, graduated from Morningside recently, just started here at Great West in June. Actually, happy to see a number of familiar names in the participant list from my time TAing at Morningside, so that's nice. Hello, everyone that recognizes me. So yeah, I'm here to talk about Great West and kind of what it was like starting out. And I think for me, the biggest thing that stood out was the way the company treats people and the way people treat people within the company. I mean, throughout the presentation so far, you've heard people talking about, yeah, Great West has a lot of really loyal insurees and workers that last for 45, 50 years, and they don't ever want to leave Great West. They stay here because they love working here. And I think that really speaks to the culture that at Great West, which is why I really wanted to work here after I graduated. I mean, even going back to when I did a job shadow while I was looking at the position, I got to meet Mike Wismont, actually. He got a look over his shoulder, kind of hear from him about what he does. And then I got a tour from my now boss, Loy. And one of the first things I got shown on the tour was they're like, yeah, here's the cafeteria where every day we can all come here and get breakfast and chat about stuff at the beginning of the day. Obviously, I haven't had that experience yet with the way things are currently. But even with that, I've met Mike, I've met Loy, I met one of my other team members in person from at a distance with things. But even with only having met half the team, I still have felt like I was a part of the team with the people here, which I think is a pretty cool thing to do, because it's not always easy to build new bonds and make new friends. And Great West, it just happens easily. What I think is especially cool is that it goes beyond just individual interactions, because it's not just, oh, I've got a great team. It's a great company, and it's not just a slogan of, oh, we care about people and we want to have good customer service and treat employees well. They actually systematically have stuff for, we want to be supporting of our employees doing well. The first one that I've got is kind of under the second bullet point, encouraging healthy activity. There's actually a really cool program with Great West called the Commit to Be Fit program, where it's not just, hey, we want employees to be healthy and happy and enjoy their life. If you work out or do any kind of physical activity, I rock climb is what I enjoy doing. And if I do that a certain amount of times, it's roughly works out to about twice a week, then Great West will actually pay me for staying healthy and improving my well-being. The other thing that Great West does to kind of support its employees that I had no idea going in, but thought was really cool once I became a part of Great West, is that they actually really actively support continuing learning, training, certification, stuff like that, to the point where, again, I can go take some courses from like online courses online, or courses to do a certification to be like a certified Java expert by Oracle, go get a master's, and Great West will financially support me doing that. And in fact, to advance through Great West, you have to continue to learn about whatever, either your specific area or even stuff outside of it. If I want to go learn about the economics of insurance, even though I'm an IT person, Great West is still like, yeah, we want you to learn and become a better employee, so we're going to help you do this, which I think is really cool. And then kind of finally, the big thing that brings me into Great West is that they're good about, they don't treat work like a never-ending sprint. Because I know specifically I'm thinking about, I've heard stories from a friend of mine when I was a kid who worked as a game tester, I think he was. I don't think he was a game developer, but in the same kind of area. But we would have deadlines like beat the game in 60 hours to get bonuses, or within 2 days. So he'd put in 40, 50-hour days to meet the deadlines and get the bonuses, which is not sustainable, but he'd get them plenty of times. And I feel like there's a lot of places where the culture of the company can be like that, where it's like, oh, we've got this deadline that we got to rush to meet. And then as soon as you get done with that one, it's another deadline that you've got to rush to meet. And from everything that I've heard from the employees that have been here a long time down to my personal experience so far, Great West isn't like that. They don't say, yeah, let's just keep sprinting for the finish line. They realize that life isn't a sprint. It's a really big marathon, and you've got to make sure to keep yourself in shape, metaphorically, to do the work that you need to do and do it the best you can. And I think that's a really valuable thing that Great West supports and values. And so that's kind of been my experience with being a new employee at Great West. And then I'll pass it on to Brandy, who you've been seeing faithfully switch our slides through thick and thin all along, to do a little wrap up.
All right. Thank you very much, Jason. Yes, when I am not acting as Vanna White, I am a recruiter here at Great West. And I help and partner with these two great departments to bring in potential students for our internship program. And then eventually some of them do come and join us full-time as employees. This year we do have 3 internships that we are looking to hire into, or 3 areas, I should say. So the IT technical services group that Mike mentioned, his group alone, also the software development interns, and then the actuarial department. The pay is there. This year, we're also looking to start our interns in the spring, if possible. You know, while you're still going to school, if you can come and start part-time, we're probably thinking like April, May. It'll be full-time then in the summer. Excuse me, full-time then in the summer, and then part-time again in the school year. Mike, do you want to talk just a little bit about what the interns do in your department, in your area?
Sure. So as I mentioned a little bit, basically that they come in and they become part of a development team. And so as part of a development team, you have a number of different roles. You, of course, do some programming, but also you help your fellow developers. So we use what's called an agile development approach. We use a team methodology where you're writing code, other people are writing code, but then you do peer code reviews so that you're looking at each other's code. You're also writing tests right along with the code that you're writing, called JUnit tests, which allow you to execute tests that verify at a very low level that your code is working correctly. And then you're going to work as parts of swarms or pair programming at time in order to address particularly difficult problems. So you're going to have a lot of different interaction with your team members and a lot of support as you develop software for the company.
Perfect. And then we also do have that technical systems intern, and those are in those multiple different areas, which is the supporting of the actual network infrastructure, the servers, and then also security too. So those are the areas that we have those internships in the IT. Just next steps for everyone, a couple things. Join our talent community. If you jump on our website and you go to the career section, there's a place that says join our talent community. There you can upload your resume and put an area of interest that you might have, whether that is data analytics or it's IT, or maybe there's other areas of the insurance company that you're interested in learning more about. You can do that there. It takes literally a minute to do that, to just put in some basic information, your email address, and again, if you want, you can upload your resume. This will also allow you to receive emails from us, and we give tips and tricks on certain things. We let you know what's going on at Great West. We also let you know when there's new opportunities that come open. So when there's internships that come open or full-time positions with us, you'll get notifications. So that way you don't have to always be looking on our website or asking around if there's ever any open opportunities, you'll get those sent directly to you. The other thing I would encourage you to do is follow us on social media. Find out what's going on at Great West. Keep in touch with us. And lastly, apply. If you're interested, we do have our internship positions open right now. I would encourage you to go to our website. I put it up there, gwcc.com/careers. And you can there apply for our internship positions that are open. We are moving quickly, so if you are interested, please, in the next week or so, search those out and apply. You're going to see on our website a picture that looks like this. I just wanted to show this. If you are ever more interested in learning more about Great West, this is a great video that we had put together, and it really has some good testimonials of current employees, past employees that really can tell you what a day in a life is like at Great West and what it's like to work for an insurance company. So thank you so much for your time today. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact any one of us on the panel, or I myself, I'm in the Human Resource Department at Great West. Randy Klender, I'd be happy to help answer your questions or get you to a person that can.